Game day.
Welcome in to another episode of Chiefs Focus Live. We have a full show today. We're going to talk about the AFC West expansion. We're going to talk about the Chiefs wide receiver room and just a few more things. My name is Quentin Morse. We got Thiz running the show in the background. And now a guy who's just having a good week, JP.
Hey man, how you doing?
Good.
I'm having a good week.
Well, yeah, it started off well.
It did. Started off really well. Nice win. Nice, lovely win on Sunday. And we just got to keep it rolling, you know? Just got to keep that momentum. And we know what it started. We know what caused it. We know what happened. Travis Kelce got involved.
Oh, my
Richie
God, dude. I've had this conversation with 3 different people now. I've had 3 people. Here's the thing, is that at work...
You know why he got involved, though? Why did he get involved, though, Quentin? Because the right wide receivers were on the field.
I've had this conversation with like 3 or 4 different people because at my job, I like 4 or 5 people in the plant will just come and talk to me about the Chiefs, which is fine. I get it. I don't mind it. I like talking sports with people. Hence why I do this. And I had somebody earlier in the week, last week, was just like, Travis Kelce is just playing. His words were, he's just ass. He's just playing like ass. And I was like, you know, he's 34 years old. Can we talk about that for a second? Like,
yeah.
Even in his early in his career, like, you're allowed to have bad weeks, you know?
Exactly.
Like, you're not going to have 115 yards games every single week.
No.
You know, even if you're the greatest player, the greatest receiver in the NFL, you're not going to have 100+ yards every single week. So can we just chill out for a second?
Yeah. The thing is, I think part of the problem was he's been injured twice this year. People did, you know, that was downplayed a lot. And when you're 24 and injured and playing through it, it's a lot easier than when you're 34 and playing through it.
Yeah,
but he played through
you're
it.
Right. You're absolutely right. You know, he's talked about because of his podcast now, he's been able to talk about how he's feeling. And last year, that was the most beat up that he had been his entire career. And you know, he's not getting any younger, and there's been a lot of pressure on him this year. So, you know, if he's feeling even similar than he was earlier, or you know, if he's feeling similar this year than he did last year, of course that, you know, he's going to have some down games.
Well, and I agree with you. I think it helped a whole lot having the right players on the field and actually feeding Rashee Rice, giving him the ball. When you actually have fear of another player besides Travis Kelce, usually tends to help. Hey, what's up, Will? It tends to help get Travis Kelce open and other guys for that matter. You finally bring in Noah Gray, which I've been pounding the table for. Why the fuck are they not playing Noah Gray? What the hell happened to Noah Gray? Did he, you know, I mean, did he piss somebody off? No, he didn't. It was just their grand scheme of things. It shouldn't work out very well. I still don't, you know, the first series of that game, I wasn't real happy with all the little check down screen passes behind the line of scrimmage. I don't like that at all. That is like 99 bullshit. I don't like it. I don't want it. I don't want to see it anymore. If it's going to work, it's going to work, but it's got to be timed very well and with a bunch of guys that know how to block for it. And we didn't have that. But for the most part, between Pacheco and Kelce, Rice, they all played, and Noah Gray. And really for Justin Watson played a good game.
You know, let's talk about Noah Gray for a second. You know, what's been impressive about Noah Gray, because this isn't the first week that he's had a couple of good catches, is that his production isn't like crazy, you know, but he's playing a lot of those over the middle routes that Travis Kelce isn't doing a ton of anymore. And I think that's a good role for him. You know, he's doing a lot of those little curl routes, 6-7 yards in the middle of the field, and I'm good with that. You know, that's a good role for him because you take away some of those routes from Travis Kelce, you give them to Noah Gray, and, you know, there's not a lot of room for busting those out for huge games. Let's give it to a guy that simply can just catch the ball and move the chains. And that's what Noah Gray has done. Perfect.
Yeah. He doesn't have the yak that Kelce has, and that's understandable. I mean, I don't know if there's another tight end in the NFL other than maybe George Kittle when he catches the ball that has that kind of yak.
Yeah, but tight ends are not known for their yak ability.
No, they're not. They're definitely not. But I think that's something he can develop as the time goes on. The more he gets into the field, the more he learns from Kelce. This is only his second year, so it's not like he's been around for a long, long time. I think the better off he'll be. Is this second year, right? Or is it third year?
I want to say it's his third year.
Is it his third year now? I don't know. Fuck. But either way, he hasn't been around very long. And when you're coming in behind Kelce, it's really hard to get on the field a lot. But when you're playing a two tight end set with him, it's huge for our team. I mean, they did a lot of different stunts, a lot of different things that worked out. The little flea flicker that was played out extremely well. And, of course, we heard, oh, God, Rasheed dropped the ball. Look, man, you know what? I'm going to say this.
This is his third year.
Fucking tired of hearing his second year. It's his second year. This is Rashee Rice. No, this is Rashee Rice's first year.
No. I was saying Noah Gray. This is Noah Gray's third year.
Yeah, third year. Okay. I'm sick and tired of hearing about Rashee Rice dropping the ball. Do you know Davante Adams' rookie season and his second year? He dropped more passes than any other wide receiver in football in those 2 seasons.
Look,
I don't know that he had 540 yards this far into the season either, but Rashee Rice does.
The thing with the drops is that it's not just one player that's doing it. It's a conglomerate of the whole room, and that's been the problem. I mean, Chiefs lead, I think before heading into that game, they had 28 drops on the year. So, they've got 30, probably over that now, depending on – I don't know if that first drop to Rashee Rice counts as a drop because it wasn't a great throw. So, I'm not sure how that one counts as a drop, but
it didn't touch his hand, so I don't think it was a drop.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll just call it an even 30 on the year now. So it's not when it's more than one player that's having the problem. I think that when you continue to have that problem as a group, those sort of things get highlighted.
Well, and you're going to see that when you got a bunch of guys that are somewhat new. They're learning a different offensive playbook than they're used to playing, especially some of the older guys like a Justin Watson and even a second-year guy like Sky Moore. This is a different playbook than it was last year in a lot of ways. They dummied some of it down. They made some of it tougher. I think it's par for the course. You're going to see that kind of shit. What I like is the fact that we cleaned it up. We did a really good job of cleaning it up for the most part Sunday. There was 3 drops the entire game. I mean, one of them wasn't a drop. I'm not going to consider that one to Rashee Rice a drop. MVS, he dropped the ball. There's no doubt about it. Watson dropped the ball. So there were really 2 drops. I didn't really think.
Let's talk about something real quick. I think the fact that Mecole Hardman and Kadarius Toney were out sort of helped the offense a little bit.
Huge.
And just follow me here. Remember last year how the Chiefs were sort of forced to just play the rookies because there wasn't a ton of veterans on the team, and the veterans that were on the team were injured, and it was just like, you fit Spags. I know you don't like playing the veterans, but you got to. Or I know you don't like playing the rookies over the veterans, but you have to because there's nobody. There's nobody else here. You have to play some of these young guys. And I think that was sort of the moment that the Chiefs had on Sunday. It was like, hey, your veterans are out. No Mecole Hardman, no Kadarius Toney. It's time to throw Rice out there for a significant more amount of snaps. And because the hands were forced by Patrick Mahomes in the offense, he had to play more snaps. And by default, he was he got fed the ball more because there was just nobody else to give the ball to that was out there as many snaps as him. So I think that what's the saying? The reason you have, and the number one reason for innovation is a need. Well, the reason that you needed someone to step up, and Rashee Rice was that guy. So I think that the fact that those two were missing really forced the hand of the offense.
Well, let's and I agree with you, and let's take this one step further. I said this during the PSF show, and I kind of said it to a few guys, but I'm going to say it now. This is forcing the hand of Veach. Just being honest with you.
Yeah,
Veach likes to pay. Okay, Veach likes to play the guys he pays. It's that simple. He likes to play the guys that are on the larger contracts, that are that are supposed to have the bigger roles in the offense. God, I hate saying it like this, but Mecole Hardman didn't absolutely have to go on IR. Okay, it's that simple. He didn't have to go on IR. He went on IR for a reason. Toney, yes, he's injured. He'll probably be back not this week, but next week. Maybe this week, but most likely next week. He forced the hand of each. I'm just telling you, when you can't beat him in one way, you have to beat him in another. I love Veach. I love what he's done for this team, but I also talk to a lot of people, as you know, and I was told this was what they were doing to a degree because they didn't have any other choice. They knew Rashee Rice was the guy. I think they waited to make sure that Richie James was eligible to play and ready to play to some degree, and they decided to force his hand. When you don't have a choice but to play the guys that are on the field that you, as a coach and as a coaching staff, know can make it, but you got a GM that, we got Clyde. We need to use him because I'm paying him $2 million. Those are the kind of things that can fuck up a team. But when those guys aren't available, you got to use who you got. Just telling you, that played a huge part in it. Now, the one thing that you said that I agree with 100% is the fact that it did help this offense because the guys that we know, we've banged the table for all year long, have stepped up. They used Pacheco in both the run and the pass game. Very balanced through 3 quarters. They used Rashee Rice a ton. They used Richie James as a punt returner. So many different – they put Noah Gray in the game more. So many different things changed during that Raiders game that solidified the fact that the guys that are on this football team can actually play the game. You just have to utilize them. It also solidified another thing. Jumping the rotation that they were doing with Sky Moore and then sometimes Kadarius Toney, then sometimes this guy and sometimes that guy was what really made us look like shit for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And there was no separation there. None. MVS wrote his ticket off the third-year option. There's no doubt about that, period. He's not coming back next year.
Oh, yeah. At the end of the season, the Chiefs can't cut him fast enough.
No. So, and he was on the sidelines pounding the table, wanting the ball more. Feed me. I'm your guy. Feed me. Feed me. No, feed you what? Feed you drops? We're not going to do that. I'm sorry, but we're not. Now, I'm not going to go off about the one he missed the week prior with the Eagles because that's not an easy catch to make for any fucking wide receiver. He actually was. He was pounding the table saying he wanted the ball more. And he didn't get it. But this week, the ball that was thrown to him, and I know he's not known for these short intermediate passes, doesn't matter. You got to catch those fucking balls. And if you miss a pass like that and then go back to the huddle and say, come back to me. I got you. I got you. No, you don't. You don't got nothing. I'm sorry, but you just don't. And I'm not one to bash a player, but he's not playing well. He got into the NFL for a reason. There's no doubt about that. There's a reason why he's here. But there's also a reason why Demarcus Robinson's in the league. There's also a reason why Chris Conley, which was, in my opinion, a better wide receiver than MVS. There's reasons why people are in the league, but it doesn't necessarily mean they fit well within your system. And this is two of the best quarterbacks in football that he's played with, and he's also kind of failed with. And we got to really take that into consideration when we look at it, because he's failed with Aaron Rodgers and now Patrick Mahomes. Last year, did he step up when he needed to? He did. But this year, it doesn't look like he's got that in him to step up like that. And that is where my insecurity with him comes. The fact that Richie James is back is huge.
That to me is huge. Expected him to be one of the leading receivers on this team. I was banging the table for him that he was a 500-yard receiver for the Daniel Jones-led Giants. I think he could be a 600-yard receiver here in Kansas City. And he just got injured so early that, the yards aren't going to be there. But I do think that the opportunity, if he is played as a wide receiver and not just as a specialist, the opportunity can be there. And I think that can really help this team if he is going to be one of the guys that I think that he could be. So if you play James right on the outside and you take away snaps from MVS and you play Rice as your quote unquote number one, I think this offense can really explode. And so this last week could be the moment where the Chiefs offense wakes up, and that's scary for the rest of the NFL.
Oh, absolutely. I saw a couple of posts today that says, there are 2 or 3 analysts out there saying the Eagles are the favorites for the Super Bowl because they beat the Bills.
Hey, and you know what? The Eagles they're playing like the best team in the NFL right now. So,
well, it's weird. It's kind of weird. They're playing similar to how we played in 2020, where we'd have right now Patrick Mahomes has he's won more games as a NFL quarterback being down by 20 plus points or 10 plus points or 15 plus points than any other quarterback in the history of football.
He actually has a 580 win percentage.
It's fucking insane.
When he's down by 10 or more points. Do you know what Hall of Fame quarterback has a 580 just overall win percentage? Kurt Warner. Yes. And the Chiefs are the Kurt Warner offense when they are down by 10 or more points. It's crazy. Exactly. I mean, nobody should have a winning percentage when they're down by 10 or more points. I mean,
exactly.
It's crazy.
Exactly. I wanted to bring up the fact that also Rashee Rice was in 43 snaps during that game, which that's phenomenal. I mean, it's 80% of the snaps. That's pretty strong. Yeah. Tells you a whole lot about how well he could play. He's got 540 receiving yards. He could, honestly, man, if you really think about it, I know it's a stretch, but if they continue to play him the way they have, he has 3 out of the next 6 games. Just think about it like this. Out of the next 6 games, if he has 3 100-yard games, 3 more 100-yard games, and then he has 3 80-yard games, he eclipses 1,000 yards.
I don't think he's going to eclipse 1,000 yards.
I mean, I'm just saying it's not impossible. It's not impossible. He's playing very well, and his yak is very good. I mean, you saw the one. He can get, he could take those little short intermediate passes and make 30, 40 yards out of them.
Yeah.
I
think it's fair for him to be 750, 800. I think that's totally doable. And I honestly, if he ends up as a 800-yard receiver, then I wouldn't be surprised if he continues to be this sort of, number one wide receiver, but I can't see him eclipsing that 1,000-yard mark.
Well, if he's only going to pick up another 250 yards in 6 games, given the fact that he played so well in this one, and he was so limited in the 11 games prior, and if they continue to give him 40 snaps a game, he can get it.
Yeah, I mean, if 50 yards a game moving forward, I don't think that would be disappointing at all.
No, not at all. But I'm just saying it's not impossible for him to get there.
You're right. It is not impossible. If he plays, like he did last week in a couple more games, it's not that crazy for him to be that 1,000-yard mark. I just don't see it happening. I think another 300 yards is probably where he's going to end the year at.
And you know what? I'll be happy if he gets 850 yards on this season as a rookie. And understand he's only 2 touchdowns away from having the most touchdowns of any rookie in the Andy Reid system ever.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the other context matters, right? Rookie wide receivers don't get a ton of options or yards or touchdowns in an Andy Reid offense.
No. And he's doing extremely well. So I think Karlaftis, what has he got 10 sacks already in the season?
I don't know where. I think if he had 10 sacks, I feel like we would have heard more about that, right?
He's either got, I know he's over 8. Maybe it's 8 sacks he's got. He's over Chris Jones. He's actually surpassed Chris Jones by a sack. So maybe it's 8.5 sacks. That's what it is. It's 8.5 sacks is what he's got on the season. Because Chris Jones has 7.5.
Yeah. So Jeremy Maclin, his rookie year, had 700 and some change. And Deshaun Jackson, who had the most yards in an Andy Reid system as a rookie, had 912. So We're putting Rashee Rice as one of the most successful rookies in an Andy Reid system.
Well, if you think about it, think of the 4 rookies that Andy Reid's had in his system. Deshaun Jackson, right? Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, and what's his name? You just said his name. Jeremy Maclin.
Jeremy Maclin, yeah.
So you got 4 of the most successful rookie wide receivers, and he's already surpassed, I think, 2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to pass Jeremy Maclin, who had 773, and Deshaun Jackson had 912. So is it possible for him to pass Jackson? Yes, but also I don't see it happening. But I'm the doubter, so
I know. It says, and I understand this is the future issue, but do you look for a number 1, or do you expect Rashee to be the number 1?
Well, what do you by look for a number 1? What do you mean by that? Do I think the Chiefs should spend a high draft pick, some high draft capital in a wide receiver? Then yes. And if I'm spending a first-round pick on a wide receiver, I'm looking for a number 1 wide receiver. So if that's what you mean, then yes, I think that you should be looking for a number 1 wide receiver, because I know that he just had a 100-yard game, but I'm not so sure that Rashee Rice is a quote-unquote number 1 wide receiver, right? You can't just.
Do you think he can get there?
I think that there is that potential there, right? But he's not, right? I mean, he could be a Juju Smith-Schuster type or a T. Higgins type, where he's like that really quality number 2 receiver, where any team in the league would be happy to have him, but he's not going to dominate, the top corners in the league.
Well, here's a weird question for you, because there's been people out there pounding the table for T. Higgins to come to Kansas City after this year. Do you think he could be our number 1 wide receiver? I don't believe he can.
T. Higgins or Rashee Rice?
T. Higgins. I don't think he can be our number 1 wide receiver. I just don't see it. But
I don't really know if I want T. Higgins in Kansas City, but that's a conversation for, March.
I don't either. But I'm just saying that is something that, when you look at, I guess the way I'm looking at it is this. If you look at the amount of production that he's had with the minimal amount of snaps that he had up until this past Sunday, and he's got this many yards, and he's already touchdown-wise, he's killing it as a rookie, especially in a spread offense, and an offense that's been pretty much dysfunctional for 11 straight weeks. I can see him being the number 1 wide receiver next year. Depending on how he plays the rest of this season, he could absolutely be a number 1 wide receiver in this offense. He's learning it very well. He's picking it up extremely well. I think what they need to do is go find somebody to complement him. That's what I feel like they need to do.
Yeah.
Now, we may have that.
If you spend a first-round pick, this is a loaded wide receiver class this year.
It really is.
There are 4 or 5 colleges right now that have multiple wide receivers heading into the draft. So Yeah, I think that you need to look at drafting a wide receiver in the first round. And I think that, let's assume they're drafting 28. Oh, excuse me. They're drafting 28 to 32, right? They make the AFC Championship game. I think that there's going to be a wide receiver there for you to get, and you're going to be very happy with the guy.
Yeah. What do we think about A.J. Dillon as a backup running back next year for the right price? I don't know if that's going to happen, just given the fact that they have P. Ryan on the field, and they really like him.
I think
they
you
also
just
have
draft a guy in the 6th round and call it good.
Yeah, I think our running back room is actually pretty stacked. I don't know that they need to spend money on a running back. We have 2 great players that are sitting there just in the waiting for Clyde to leave, which he will be leaving this year. So it's one of those things where you just have to, realize that our running back room is stacked, and you got speedy, strong running backs that can get skinny when they need to get skinny. I think that's just kind of where it's at right now.
Yeah.
And Clyde, and I'm sorry, but Pacheco is really starting to catch the ball well out of the backfield. He's finally grasping that trait, and he's doing a great job with it. That's that Kareem Hunt in him that I said that he had. The difference is that Kareem didn't kill worms 6 inches under the ground. Pacheco does. Pacheco, they have to go back and fix the field no matter where he plays. He's like a fucking human pothole maker.
Yeah,
the guy's insane.
He's a really good player, and I think he complements this offense nicely. So that's why I've been banging the table for the Chiefs to run the ball more this year, despite having Patrick Mahomes. When your run game or when your pass game isn't working, run the ball. You have a big offensive line, specifically your middle 3. Run the ball.
Yep, I agree. If you run the ball enough, you're going to open up the passing game. If you pass the ball enough and it's not working, you're going to open up the run game. It's just one of those things that you got to find that fine balance. That balance in between the two. Little bit of news, which we already knew. We talked about this on the show before. All charges were dropped against Justin Ross. We knew about this. Well, I'll say I knew about this. I told you guys about this. What I had heard when this happened, that it was bullshit. And I think the tipping point was what I was told the tipping point was then was the 911 call that came in. The question was asked, is there anybody else there? She said no. The next day, the grandmother came in and said, yes, I was there. I saw the whole thing. All the charges are dropped. There's nothing there. It went from a $25,000 worth of vandalism to $1,000 worth of vandalism to no vandalism and no criminal charges. So it just kind of goes to show you how this works in the NFL. For anybody that's asking why he was put on the exempt list, there's one reason and one reason only. Sue. I don't know her last name. Fucking first name is Sue. She's the one that Goodell hired over the Deshaun Watson situation. She is very, very quick to judge on DV cases and not thinking about how it plays out in the grand scheme of things. That's what happens. I expect him to be off the exempt list fairly quick. I don't know if she's going to continue to give him a suspension after the fact. I feel like his suspension has been completed by being on the exempt list. But that's her choice.
Yeah, this is I never like commenting on these cases until, all the information is out, just because I don't think it's fair to any party to talk about it until everything is sort of solved. And so we mentioned it when it first happened, but the entire process on this show, and I think that this is just the way that we deal with it in general, is simply, we just have to wait until we know more, because you don't know unless you were there. So we waited, and, now that we know everything that was going on, like you said, charges were dropped. I think the NFL is quick to act in these cases, for what's happened in the NFL over the last, 2 decades. We'll see what happens. I don't know if I've been on the boat this entire time, as you know, that he's not going to be impactful at any point this year. So in terms of the football aspect of it, this doesn't affect the team at all, in my opinion. But, Chargers
we'll see how he does it when he comes back. Hey, when he comes back, and if he is impactful because nobody else is out on the field, and they need him out on the field, and he makes an impact, because I still think he's one of the best route runners in football. He's phenomenal when it comes to that. They didn't utilize him at all prior to this incident happening. He was out there very little. I think a lot of that just had to do with depth chart and
I think he had a handful of snaps in the first 2 games, and then there was nothing after that.
Yeah, it just kind of went downhill after that. And it's not that he did anything wrong, because honestly, he wasn't targeted, but a couple of times. He ran the right route. He got open when he needed to. It was, not everybody's going to be and they also were really feeling him out to see how well he was recovered, because he had 2 injuries. He had a back injury, he had a foot injury, or an ankle injury, and it was kind of a combination of 2 things. And you got to see how somebody's going to fare getting out there and getting hit. And that's what they did. We'll see what happens when he comes back. I heard that he should be off the exempt list this week. We'll see what happens. And then he'll be back practicing again. So I don't know why he's still on there, to be honest. Anytime prior to this woman taking over, if somebody whose charges were dropped and there was nothing to prove, they were off the exempt list immediately. There's no reason for him to still be on it. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. But it's good news for him. It's good news for the team. I think he's a good player. The Chiefs wouldn't have signed him to a contract while he was still in a boot if they didn't have faith in him. So I don't know. They did waive John Ross, retired, semi-retired. Now he wants to come back to football at some point, John Ross, which is fine. I mean, I was kind of surprised they didn't waive him prior to that, because he did basically walk off the practice field and said, fuck, I can't do this no more. And part of that reason was because he, when you're in training camp and you're watching Rashee Rice, Justin Ross, Tony, and all these other, well, not Tony, but all these other guys just killing it, and then you're not really in the fold, it's pretty hard to say I can handle this. And I don't know if he can handle Andy Reid's playbook. But regardless, he decided to retire at that point, and now he says he wants to come back to football at some point now. Who knows? Hey, whatever he wants to do, that's great for him. But he is now no longer a Chief. So that's I guess it's a good thing to a degree. Moving forward, what do we got next?
AFC West expansion.
Good times.
Let's talk about the Denver Broncos, who have been over the last, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, including their bye week. They are undefeated. They've won 4 games in a row. Packers, they beat the Packers going back to week 7, Chiefs, Bills, Vikings, and now Cleveland. We talked about this on the show, simply that the defense was going to get better because it simply couldn't get any worse. And not only has the defense gotten better, the offense has gotten better. And if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, you should be happy about this, because this means that Marvin Harrison Jr. will not be a Denver Bronco. So,
and they're going to hang on to Russ for 1 more year. They're not going to go out and draft a quarterback.
Exactly. So the Broncos are playing like a competent football team. Look, all jokes aside, we make fun of Russell Wilson on this show because you should. But they beat some good football teams. They beat the Vikings with the Josh Dobbs experiment. Last week they beat the Cleveland Browns. That first drive, they made the Browns defense look like Swiss cheese. I mean, it was methodical. They went right down the field and scored a touchdown. They beat the Browns 29-12, which is a scoregami, which is a score that has never happened before in the NFL. Well, now it has. It's a scoregami.
Yeah.
So I guess this feels bad. Good job, Denver. Ugh. That just feels gross saying. But look, hey, Broncos are playing like a football team that knows how to play football. So They are definitely.
Sadly enough, they're in the hunt.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, they are. They are second in the AFC West.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy, Quentin, to think about that? Second in the AFC West. Last year, I predicted them prior to the season starting because of their defense and the fact that they did bring in Russell Wilson. I thought they would be second last year. And Russell Wilson proved me completely wrong.
Wait, hold on. I thought somebody picked them to be last in the division.
That was you.
Oh, okay.
But you also picked them to be last this year.
I picked the Raiders to be last this year because I thought that the Raiders were just going to implode, and that kind of happened, but it hasn't resulted in as many losses as I thought. Well, right now the Chargers are in last place of all teams.
I know,
but we'll get to them here in a minute.
Yeah. Hey, look, I don't know what Russell Wilson's stats look like in that Cleveland game. I didn't look at his numbers.
Mediocre. He had he had 136 passing yards. But
okay, that's normal then.
He didn't do. 134 passing yards, 1 touchdown. The rushing game, they had a little over 150 carries or 150 yards as a team. I'll say this: it just seems like everything is kind of working. Nothing super impressive by the team. It's not like Russell Wilson has come out passing, 250 yards a game. It just seems like they're playing overall football, right? 2 weeks ago against the Vikings,
balanced.
Russell Wilson threw for almost 300 yards. 3 weeks against the Bills, it was Javonte Williams who they pounded the rock and they were able to beat the Bills. So, it's not like one particular player has sort of woken up and taken this team over. It's just the Broncos are playing solid football. They're 6-5, and like you said, they're in the playoff hunt, and we'll see what happens. I mean, if the Broncos, actually end up in the playoffs, they'll get stomped by a division winner, and that'll be funny. So
yeah, there will be. It's more methodical football is what they're playing. They're picking and choosing their battles. They know if Russell Wilson goes up against a certain team that has a good pass rush and a good secondary or halfway decent secondary, they're not going to pass the ball as much. So his average of 118 to 130 yards a game is going to be there. If he goes up against a team that has a bad pass rush or a pass rush that's injured, he's going to put up 300 yards or close to 300 yards. And if anybody wants to know, that's pretty much double his production of every game that he's had since he's been with the Broncos. So I don't think he had another game close to 300 yards since he's been with the Broncos. But that is, as much as I don't like Sean Payton, that's a Sean Payton trait. You find the weaknesses and you exploit them. And then the defense, of course, making plays on when the Browns turn a ball over, fumble snap. They got a rookie quarterback in there. I don't know that makes a huge difference. They beat us when we were down. Yeah. I mean, it just is what it is. And it gave them the momentum.
They have a crazy turnover differential over the last month. I mean, we turned the ball over 5 times on them. I think the Bills turned the ball over
5 times. The Bills did too, 5 times.
So they've got they're taking advantage of turnovers. And, while that's not going to continue, you got to give it to a team that's been able to take advantage of them. So good.
There you go. I mean, Texans, Broncos, Bills, Bengals are 11th. Raiders are 12th. I mean, look, when you really look at that right there, it's ugly. I mean, who would have thought, if you look at the teams in the NFC, who would have thought the Packers would be leading the charge to be in the hunt at this point? Because they were playing so poorly until these last 3 or 4 or 5 games. Then they started stepping up. Jordan Love's looking like a quarterback.
And we will talk about that on Thursday.
That's right. So you just never know what's going to happen in the NFL. You don't know. But next, on to the Chargers.
The Chargers, 4th in the AFC West. Brandon Staley's a bad coach. I was really hoping that the Chargers would win against the Baltimore Ravens, but the Chargers chargered, right? I mean, they had a chance to come back in the game. They had this really really bad intentional grounding. Bad not because it was the right call, but it was just a horrible play by Justin Herbert. And, when you drop back 44 times and you end up with 217 yards, a touchdown, and interception, the offense is broken. Keenan Allen continues to tear the field up. He had 106 yards on 14 receptions, but that defense continues to be bad. There's yeah, it can't the Chargers. There's not a lot to say about it. They're not a good football team. And a lot of that, everybody's had this conversation. Brandon Staley's a bad head coach.
Yeah.
And that team is getting older. So at some point within the next year or so, they're going to have to blow it up. Getting rid of guys like Keenan Allen and starting from scratch, because that team is not good.
No, they're going to have to start with their head coach, which is going to happen. We know this. Everybody knows that he is done. I'm a little surprised that they are not the third team in the NFL to fire a coach mid-season this year, but so far they haven't done it. He imploded in a press conference.
Yeah, he did. And that's when when something like that happens, that's when the writing's on the wall.
Exactly. And when he imploded that day, I kind of knew then that somebody has already been up his ass a few times about, hey, you got to figure something out. But, him saying, him going off on the press saying, adamantly saying, I am calling the defensive plays. I'm calling the defensive, scheme 100%. Get over yourself. He needs to get over himself. He's a bad football coach. And not just from a coaching standpoint, but from a player standpoint. He lets players play injured. He makes them play injured. These guys, I think he lost that locker room. And that's something that is not uncommon in the NFL. But when you lose the locker room, the way we've seen the Chargers collapse here over the last 4 or 5 games, well, even since us, really, he's lost the locker room. And I don't know why he's still there. I really don't. I don't know if it's they want to get their money's worth out of him for the rest of the year because he's on a fully guaranteed contract. I really don't know. But he's done after this year. There's rumors going around about Bill Belichick and, a couple other coaches going there. Who knows if that's going to happen or not. I don't know why Belichick would want to come into a system with Andy Reid and Sean Payton. But hey, weirder things have happened. I don't see that happening. I think he's probably going to end up going to Chicago if he leaves. I think that's what's going to happen. But that's just my opinion. The Chargers are a bad football team, and it's not because of just their players.
No,
it starts at the.
It really does start with the coaching, and you have a good quarterback, and it just sucks that for a guy that is really talented. I did hear what the Raiders.
Yeah, that's funny.
We're gonna get to the Raiders here in just a minute, Will. Yeah. But it just sucks. You have such a talented quarterback, and you can't do anything with it because your coach is he's just bad. You're supposed to be a defensive guy before you got there. You remember the Chargers defense was good before they brought him in, and every year they've been on the bottom. Bottom third of the NFL. They can't stop a passing game to save their life this year. So it's just a bad football team.
And when you got running backs out there that are, I'm talking about bottom tier running backs that are putting up 100 yards on that team, that tells you a whole lot about that defense. You got teams that are putting up 300 yards passing and a running back is putting up 120 yards and a couple of touchdowns. That's just not cool. They're doing a disjustice to their 6 or 7 fans that they have left, and they're really doing a disjustice to Justin Herbert because he's a better player
Buffalo Wild Wings because that one lady was sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings.
That's right. I think that was all an act. I think she was brought in as an actor, to be honest with you. But I don't know. To me, I like Justin Herbert as a player. I don't think he's a bad person either. I just feel like I hate to see good players get wasted. We watched it with the Texans all those years, and now we're seeing it again with him. Um, I don't know, man. I just don't like the way it looks, and it's horrible that he signed that contract. I wish he wouldn't have, but he did. I understand why he did because it's your first NFL contract, but I just wish he wouldn't have signed it. I wish he would have just said, you know what, I'd rather just take my chances somewhere else. So, it is what it is. They suck. They're not going to get any better. I think the Raiders probably. I have a weird feeling. I mean, I have a weird feeling they're still going to end up on the bottom of the totem pole when it all
I hope
boils down
so,
to
because
it.
then I can brag about it for the rest of the calendar year too.
Yeah, I still feel like they're going to end up on the bottom of the totem pole. I don't know that the Broncos are going to stay in second place right now. I don't know what their schedule looks like, but I don't know if they'll stay in second place. I know they got, I think, 3 divisional games left, and that's not easy to. No matter who you are, that's not easy to.
Solid graphic.
I love that graphic. It's not easy to win, and no matter how bad the divisional teams are, it's not easy to beat them. So we've watched that over and over again with us. We've watched it in the NFC East or AFC East. It's not easy. So hell, Tom Brady lost to the Saints 9-0 because he pissed off his wide receivers that he didn't practice with. And when his 2 guys were out and he lost a couple of defensive players, he couldn't even get in freaking field goal range. Never even attempted a field goal that last year with the Bucs. So it's hard to win a divisional game, no matter how bad the teams are. We're just lucky that we have who we have. Now, on to the Raiders. Fuck
the
that.
Raiders.
Amik Robertson.
So, let's put that Amik Robinson thing back up from Will. So for those of you that don't know Amik Robinson, it came up and said that, he was really upset about the loss of the Chiefs because he just feels like that their locker room has more dogs than the Chiefs and that, they feel like that they're a better team than the Chiefs. I have a couple things. One, if you are up 14-0 and you have more dogs than another team, you don't lose that game, first of all. That's just
exactly
the way that works. And I have Patrick Mahomes, so my dog, mentality is better than your dog mentality. Plus, you fired your cornerback the next day because he quit on your team. So, yeah.
Keep talking. And that wasn't the only player that they waived. They got rid of a defensive edge player, too, one of the guys that started. I can't think of his name right now, but they got rid of him. So that was 2 players within 2 days that they dumped. So talk all the shit you want. I mean, no shits, shaking my head. Look, man, Marcus Peters, I've been saying this for a long time. People argue with me about it. Was he a ball hawk back in the day? Of course he was. Was he also the Olay King? Of course he was. And when I say Olay King, he's like a bullfighter. When they're coming at him, he just steps the fuck out of the way. He does not want to tackle. He doesn't want to get hit. He doesn't want any part of that. And that's part of playing this game, period. Feel for Mahomes and them. Yeah, absolutely. They better hope and pray that they better hope and pray that for some reason Mahomes isn't playing that game because that was a stupid fucking comment. But the Raiders, in my opinion, they have 3 or 4 good players on that football team. Really good players. Max Crosby, Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
And the other wide receiver that's bald.
Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, Jacoby Myers. That's who I'm talking about. Not the other one. Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers is a dog. I will say he is. That kid's good.
Look,
there's no doubt about it.
Look, the Raiders were dead in the water. They fired their coach. They never should have hired. They promoted within, and this guy has sort of turned that culture around. I think he's going to be the head coach moving forward. I know we talked about that on the game. We talked about it on the show after the game, but I just think that you have an owner who openly said he regretted not keeping the last interim coach after he changed the locker room and held that locker room together after the crazy season they had. And this interim head coach is sort of doing a similar thing. So I think he's going to stay around for a while. And
well, we'll see.
He's done a pretty good job keeping that locker room together because it was busting at the seams. You had multiple players, Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, talking about how openly out in the public about the culture in that locker room and how nobody respected their head coach. And now you see these guys that are playing just a little bit harder for their head coach. That O'Connell, their quarterback, he can make some great throws. He's got some arm talent. I don't think he's gonna, mount up to anything because, I don't think he has that athleticism that you need in today's NFL in terms of the quarterback position. He doesn't move out of the pocket very well, and that's not just a scrambling thing. That's just a being able to extend plays type stuff. I don't think he has that, but he has a future in the NFL. I'll say that. I think he's proven that up to this point. He's at least made the decision of what the Raiders need to do at quarterback difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about because there's commentators and fans alike out there that are saying he's a lot like Tom Brady and a lot like Joe Montana. So, I mean, apparently he's the second coming of both of them mixed together all in one big package with a stupid 1978 porn star mustache. I really don't know. He looks better than of course, Jimmy Garoppolo did. He's not a glass slipper like Jimmy Garoppolo is.
Yeah.
So, of course, anybody is going to make it look better going, when you're stepping over a Jimmy Garoppolo, when you're replacing a guy like him, yeah, you're going to look better.
Yeah.
But again, I agree with you. The culture's changed. He does have that mentality of the Raiders. And we know, the Raiders have had that mentality their whole life. Look, man, it is what it is. They have a few good players. They have a lot of growing to do. I don't see them, and I think his tenure as a head coach is going to really is predicated on what they do the rest of the season. If they come out and they are, a game, if they're 500 or, a game above 500, okay, he may stick around. If they lose three of the next 6 games, I don't know.
Right now, they're 5-7. Right, they're in third place in the AFC West. The last few they beat I believe McDaniels got fired after the Lions game, so they beat the Giants after the Bears game. Okay, so then they fought tough with the Lions. They blew out the Giants. They beat the Jets. They kept it close with the Dolphins. They had an opportunity to beat the Dolphins. And, they went up 14-0 on the Chiefs. So since he's been the head coach, they've been respectable. They haven't been pushovers in any of these games.
No, they haven't. And we got to give them that. They haven't been. Their defense has changed tremendously.
And look, here, the next 5 games are against tough opponents. They face the Vikings, Chargers, Chiefs, Colts, Raiders. Everybody remaining on their schedule has a winning record except the Chargers, but that's a divisional game, so you never know. You're not going to be able to walk over on the Chargers.
Wait a minute, they face themselves?
They face the Vikings, Chargers, Chiefs, Colts, Broncos.
Oh, you said Raiders. Okay, freak me out a minute.
Well, The Raiders always face themselves.
That's true.
But
kind of like what we did the first half of this year.
Yeah, so they've got a tough schedule remaining. So if they look competent in the rest of these games, they're gonna win a couple. If they win 2-3 of these games, which I think is totally possible, they can beat the Chargers, Colts, Broncos, and Vikings.
Let me ask you a question. Has anybody, and I don't know, I know that Jefferson's been out. I don't know if he's out for the rest of the year or if he's out just for precautionary reasons because of the injury. If he comes back, the Vikings are a different football team. Now,
of course,
I want to say this. Josh Dobbs was 4-1 without Jefferson, or maybe 5-1 without Jefferson in the fold. So that's pretty good. He started off really bad last night, and it didn't get much better for him. He didn't look the greatest. But I still think he's a good quarterback. I think he's got a lot of good traits. He's very, very elusive. I got to give that to that kid. He is an elusive kid. He can break tackles and get out of really bad situations very well. So I'm going to give it up to him for that. And I still think he may be their quarterback next year, just depending on where they land. He may, if he continues to play well and he's got his weapons back on the field, he may be their quarterback next year. But
I don't think so.
I don't see. I cannot see the Raiders winning more than 2 of these next 5-6 games. I can't see it happening.
They're not gonna, they're not running the table, but I don't see them getting blown out by the Vikings, Chargers, Broncos, or Colts.
No. Now the Chargers for some reason may have that game against them. It may be that game that they just break out and just tear up the field. They tend to do that once a year. And this may be the year that the game that they do it in this year. I don't know. I just can't see them. If Jefferson's back in the fold, they're going to have a hard time beating the Vikings. The Vikings have a decent defense.
Yeah. No, you're right. Like I said, I mean, it's a tough remaining schedule for the Raiders, but I could see them winning 2 of these games. So they end the season 7-9, 7-10. I think all, in all fairness, that's a pretty good season for them.
It is, given the fact that they wouldn't have won.
They fired their head coach halfway through the year.
Well, and not only that, I don't. If they wouldn't have fired him, they wouldn't have had 4 wins.
You're right. They would have. They wouldn't have beat the Giants, but that is the AFC West expansion.
Well, and think about it, Quentin. 2 of the teams that they beat, if you really look at it, are the 2 of the worst teams in football.
Yeah.
When you're looking at, and
somebody's got to beat the worst teams in football.
Yeah, and the Jets weren't that great. We do need to talk a little bit about. I wanted to bring this up because it's kind of comical, and it's not AFC related, but as far as expansion, AFC West is concerned, or any part of it. But the Carolina Panthers fired Frank Reich.
Stupid, but that's fine.
Can you imagine, just let me ask you, if you were a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, any type of coaching at all, and the Carolina Panthers called you up and said, hey, we want to interview you for the head coaching job, would you go?
Yes.
Given their track record.
Yeah.
He's fired Mr. 3 coaches in 3 years, bro, in the middle of the season, basically.
This is my formal announcement that I'm asking to be the head coach of your Carolina Panthers. I feel like if I could send my resume, I haven't seen the job offering on LinkedIn quite yet, or ZipRecruiter. So, just hit me up. You know a guy, I know a guy, because if you fire me 10 games into the season, I will 100% take the $40 million remaining on my contract when you fire my ass.
Absolutely.
That's why.
Can you imagine, though? Can you imagine firing 3 coaches in 3 seasons?
I can't. I don't know what he expected from this season. Yeah, you know why you're 1-10 is because it's a bad football team. And you, Mr. Tepper, got involved with the draft process, and you drafted a minion from Despicable Me to be your quarterback. Instead, you should have let your guys who wanted C.J. Stroud to get C.J. Stroud. Now you're stuck with a Willy Wonka factory worker as your quarterback.
It's very true. It's very true. What is he, like 5'8"?
5'9"? I'm 6'4", so anybody below 6 foot is like a midget to me.
Yeah, well, I think he's like 5'9", maybe. And I'm not going to sit here and slam every short quarterback because Doug Flutie was a short quarterback.
Yeah, with no first-round pick because, they traded up. Look, the problem with Bryce Young is not that he's short. It's part of the problem. But, Kyler Murray's short. But Kyler Murray is an extreme athlete.
Yes.
Russell Wilson is a shorter quarterback, but he's able to move out of the pocket. Bryce Young is not only short, but he doesn't have that elite level athleticism that allows him to make plays outside the pocket. If you're a short quarterback, especially in the NFL, you have to be able to move out of the pocket and use your legs. Bryce Young does not have that athleticism. That's why he will not be a successful quarterback. Just because you're short doesn't mean you won't be successful. There is nothing past that.
You're right. He has, and look, he's right. He has no pocket presence. He has no awareness. He's worse than Joe Burrow when it comes to feeling the blitz at all. He's terrible at that. But again, part of that I think is coaching. But again, and being young, and I'm not going to put it on Frank Reich because he's not a quarterback coach. But if you can't keep a team together as far as the coaching staff is concerned, how are you going to keep a team together that's on the field?
Yeah, just it takes more than 10 games to do that. And Frank Reich has been a successful coach in this league before, so
correct.
I don't know.
And I remember that back in the day when
thank God he's not the owner of my favorite team.
God, but I can remember back when coaches were given 4 to 5 years to build a football team.
Yeah, you need time, and
you got to have time.
Just like quarterbacks need more time.
Oh, he's back with the Eagles. He said, right? Back to the Eagles. What's he doing?
I don't. He's probably like a offensive assistant. He's got some fancy title, and his job is to watch film.
It might be. I mean, and you know what? That's not a bad plan.
No,
because I'm going to tell you something. People are saying the Eagles are the best team in football. I don't see it, and here's why I don't see it. They have the best record. That's all they have.
Best offensive line. They've got a good defensive line. Secondary is a little iffy. They've got a really good quarterback with really good weapons.
Okay, but let me ask you. In the last 3 weeks that they played football, they have had to come back hard to win.
I don't care.
That tells me a lot when you're supposed to be so good and then your offense can't score.
They were saying the same thing about Kansas City a few years ago, and our argument was, look at what they've done at the end of the game. Eagles are doing the same thing. I don't care that you have to come back and win. The fact is you're winning.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. I don't know. I look at like the Cowboys. They just blew the doors off of people.
They also lost to the Cardinals.
Well, they always lose to the Cardinals. I don't know why that is. That's just kind of like that team beats them. My thing is, I look at the NFC and I think, okay, there's 2 other football teams that are really good. And one of them, I think, really is the 49ers. I think they're a good football team. With that defense, that offensive line, that running game, those wide receivers, and a very easy system for a quarterback to look good in, and a quarterback that's actually looking better than the last 5 quarterbacks they've had, that's going to be a tough football team. They're not going to have the cakewalk that they had in the playoffs last year against the 49ers this year. They won't have that cakewalk. They just won't. I just don't see it happening. But we'll see. This is Jason Kelce's last year playing football, so they're going to go out with a bang no matter what, and it may end up being, we've heard from numerous people saying that it's going to be another reunion of the Chiefs and the Eagles in the Super Bowl. We'll see. I mean, we have the opportunity, just like everybody else does right now, we're the number 1 seed, second in the AFC. We have the absolute opportunity to be able to get to the Super Bowl. So I don't know why we wouldn't. What do you think of the Ravens right now? Other than they're playing really good football to a degree, what do you think? Do you think they can actually go up against our defense in the playoffs and win? Do you think that can happen?
I mean, I think, of course, they can win, right? Of course, the Ravens could come into Arrowhead, or we could go to Baltimore and lose, and the Ravens could beat us. I think they're easily at least the second best team in the AFC, but I just
Thank you,
haven't
Viz.
seen the success for the Ravens in the playoffs with Lamar
That's
Jackson.
it.
Even though Lamar Jackson is super talented, we haven't just seen that track record. So, but
Exactly.
are they? They are the second best team in the AFC, and it's not like the Chiefs are that much better than the Ravens, right? I think they're very similar. I think they're very similar to Kansas City.
Yeah, I think defense. I agree with you, but I think defensively they're better than the Ravens. Defense.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, without fail. So I don't know. What I did notice, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about this game, or this on this show, I should say. I knew this was coming, and I was worried about it, and it kind of reared its ugly head in this Raiders game, especially at the beginning of the game. Our defense came out looking flat. They looked gassed. And that is not gassed from a game, it's gassed from a season. And that worried me because this defense, if you really look at it, has been out on the field 3/4 of the time in 11 games.
Yeah, especially the last couple of weeks. But, offense picked them up. Defense
Thank God.
its crap out. And, we'll talk about Sunday Night Football coming up here on Thursday. So make sure you tune in for that. And there'll be a show after the game on Sunday. So
he said Chris Jones mentioned they weren't used to it. Did you see that? Chris Jones said they weren't because being out on the field so much.
Oh,
being the focal point. They're the reason why the team is really 8-3. So thank God. But yeah, we'll talk about all this on Thursday. We got a Sunday night game coming up. Make sure you join the PSF app. We're going to have a lot of fun. We have a midweek show tomorrow on the PSF app. If you haven't joined, join. And we will talk to you guys again on Thursday. Peace out, everybody.
See you, Chief.